And welcome back to Hot and Cold Podcast. Today is March 26th, Saturday, and we're starting Elite Eight basketball today. Now, I'm going to warn you, this episode isn't me and Connor just bouncing ideas off each other, whatever. We got a new co-host for today's episode, a special co-host, Aaron Torres. Aaron Torres has been on this podcast 1,000 times, mostly as a guest role, interview, whatever. But now he's filling Connor's role. So, Aaron, I hope you're ready to give some insane IU takes, show your IU bias in this and everything.
I was just going to say, you're going from one insane IU super fan to another with the way that, I've embraced Mike Woodson. So it's basically I'm just Connor, just an older, grayer, uglier version of Connor. So I'm going to bring the exact same content. So I'm excited to get started. So what do we got? Off season? We just breaking down Dane Fife. What are we doing here? Tell me everything. Finally the year. 2023 is finally the year. Is that what we're doing?
Oh yeah, we could start with some quick IU talk, and then I want to kind of recap all the games that happened last night. I want
some quick Kentucky talk from you too, because I want to pick your brain on some stuff here.
Yeah, it's been a tough offseason so far. It's been tough. It's been very tough. But yeah, let's start at IU. Obviously, they lose Dane Fife. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that happened. They're bringing in, they're kind of just hiring from within the program, bringing in Walsh to fill that assistant coach role. But yeah, they lost Wander, who's a hometown kid, same hometown as me, Durr, Finney, Parker Stewart. People are dropping like flies over there. And I don't think this is, I don't think it's detrimental. I think it's part of the strategy. I think they kind of wanted to clean house a little bit. Woodson took over a lot of Archie's guys. And now he's kind of making it his roster. But I will say, you're tapped into the national a little bit. I see you focus more on the transfer portal than just about anybody. And I just want to kind of pick your brain. And I know the IU fans that listen to this, the large portion of our audience will want to hear. Do you think IU will be able to clean up in this transfer portal?
Well, I do think that, listen, having an NBA head coach coming off an NCAA tournament, that's always going to sell no matter what. I'm just curious, Sam, like I followed this stuff pretty closely last year and the year before and the year before. The portal seems to be moving a little bit slow this year. And so the number of programs, you use the word clean up, and I'm only saying it because you reference it in that exact way. I don't know that there's that many difference makers. And I'll just say in general, what I am kind of curious about, I know we're going to get to some of this Elite Eight games in a minute, but one thing I keep saying about Arkansas, what I am so impressed by with Arkansas is the fact that when I looked at their portal, quote unquote, haul, if you will, last year, it didn't really blow me away, to be honest. I mean, Audie Stoney, Chris Likes, I watched all these guys, and I'll be blunt. I didn't totally see what Arkansas, what the bigger picture was. I bring it up because as you watch them, I think Texas Tech was a great example of this too.
Yeah.
Yes, you know exactly where I'm going with this.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing in guys that fit roles, that can do a specific thing, that don't all have to score 22 points a game or 18 points a game and take 22 shots, whatever. To me, that's going to be interesting to see if the portal evolves in that way. Because I think at this time last year, we all thought of Texas as a portal winner. We all thought of Kentucky as a portal winner. And listen, Texas made the second round of the tournament, first tournament win in 7-8 years. Kentucky, I know it was a tough way to end, but the regular season, like it kind of worked. And so I'm just curious that push-pull balance of using the portal. I think we all think of a transfer as an older player, an immediate guy that's going to step in and contribute right away. But can you find those role players? Can you find those guys that are willing to do the little things? It's not just an Indiana question. I think it's a 350 team in college basketball question, because I just don't know, based on how slowly things have started, that there's going to be that many difference makers really available.
No, I agree with you completely. And I put out a tweet about this on, I believe, Thursday, when I was just talking about Arkansas and Texas Tech. It's funny you referenced those exact two teams, because I did as well. They're bringing in guys like, I believe one of Arkansas's guys is from Furman. And then there's another guy, I could get that wrong, Fordham, one of them. And then on Texas Tech, they're bringing in a guy like Adonis Arms, who's an immediate difference maker, whatever. And he came off the bench at Winthrop. Like, it's kind of funny. They're using these kind of mid-major teams as, like a high school, like a de facto high school, picking up the guy in the low 200s, and just seeing potential there. So I think that that's a good point. I think what Texas did, it was the sexiest move. Everybody in the offseason loved it, but Marcus Carr, what did he bring to the table? Trey Mitchell didn't even finish the season. Then you go over to Kansas. Kansas brings in Remy Martin, who, not until we'll get to this, but not until recent games. Yeah, he was an obvious disappointment. And a guy like Yusufu from Drake, who was, the guy of the tournament, everybody loved him out of the first four. He didn't really do much either. So there's something to that. We'll see how this offseason kind of goes. But I want to reference Kentucky real quick because I'm very worried. We've talked about it privately. I'm very worried about how this offseason will go. Obviously, there's a lot of dominoes that will fall. Shaden Sharp, whether he stays, whether he leaves. And then you got, Oscar, who's obviously the number one guy everybody's looking at, National Player of the Year, most likely. And we'll see where he kind of goes. But I want to kind of gauge you because I can sit here and talk about Kentucky all day. I'm kind of biased in that way. And I have a lot more false hope than maybe somebody who doesn't love the program as much as I do does. So what are you thinking about Calipari in this offseason and how it's going to shake out?
Well, my concern with Kentucky is I just think there's a huge portion. I've said this since the night of the St. Peter's game. There is a huge, I'm not talking 5%. I'm talking probably like 80%. John Calipari cannot do anything to win them back until the 2023 NCAA tournament. I've said that, and I truly believe it is, we could talk about the offseason moves and what's going to work and what isn't and blah, 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 and this and that. At the end of the day, it's not going to come down to how good it will, like their success will come down to who returns, who comes out of the portal, who decides to transfer in, who decides to transfer out, et cetera. That's going to be what is the foundation of their success. But what I think Calipari has always been able to rely on is there's always going to be something that he can use to galvanize the fan base, a commitment from this time last year, Kellen Grady, Severe Wheeler, you could CJ Frederick, you could start seeing the pieces coming together of what could be a very good team and what was a very good team. High school recruiting. Last offseason, he changed the coaching staff and that got everybody excited. And I think we're now at the point where, everybody's kind of like, dude, you've done the coaching change thing. You've done the high school 5-star thing. You've done the elite transfer from another program thing. None of it has delivered us a national championship in over a decade. Not over a decade, an exact decade. It's been a long time. We don't care. I don't care how good you want to sell us on this kid being, and by the way, myself, we're going to do it. I mean, if they get some, all conference player from the Pac-12 or the Big Ten or whatever, we're going to say, wow, this guy could be awesome. But I don't think to most of the fan base, it matters. I think they're tired of being sold the same narratives over, and you're going to get excited, but it's going to be a cautious thing. And so, we could talk about Shaden Sharp. We could talk about Oscar Tshiebwe. Obviously, those are not only the two biggest pieces at Kentucky, Sam, but I would argue two of the biggest pieces anywhere in college basketball based on a returning National Player of the Year and a returning potential number one overall pick in the draft. It just comes down to from the Kentucky. Now, from the national perspective, it's different. I'm going to do a top 25. Gary Parrish is going to do a top 25. Jeff Borzello is going to do a top 25. And we're going to have Kentucky high. But to the Kentucky fan base, I don't think they're going to care until they see the results on the court. And then, oh, by the way, they see it in the NCAA tournament when it's in a Sweet 16, in an Elite Eight, playing to go to a Final Four, playing in a Final Four in 2023, which is still 12 long months away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fair to say? Is that fair to say, by the way?
That's completely fair to say, and I agree with you because look, BBN, Big Blue Nation, it's kind of like if you're doing well, they're going to love you better, than any other fan base in the country. They're going to love you. They're going to praise you. They're going to go to battle for you. But if you slip, and I think it's fair to say that Cal has slipped, it's going to they're going to attack you and they're going to, call for his job, which is stupid. He's not getting fired. I think that needs to be done. Like, I don't think you're reading the same tweets as I am, maybe, but there's a significant portion of people that want Cal's job, done. Yeah. And I think that's a dangerous game, and nobody is going to fire Cal. Yeah.
Really quick, and this goes back to everything that I just said and everything you said, is he did such a great job of because those same tweets were out last year. And
Oh
he
yeah.
sold it was COVID, it was this, it was that. Give me this year. I'm going to bring in all these older players. And then he gets to the NCAA tournament and it's, well, none of these guys have ever been here before. And it's like, come on, dude. Come on, man. And so that's part of it too, is he already rebuilt that trust. It's such a sports radio, sports podcast. We always do the dating analogies in sports, but like, I think this one's applicable. Like your girlfriend breaks up with you, you break up with your girlfriend, she takes you back, you take her back, whatever. And then the same thing happens again 6 months later. And you're like, we just got through this. And the same exact thing is, and that's exactly what's happening with Kentucky. 9 months ago, it was Cal has to change everything or I cannot support this program. Well, he changed everything. And then we have a loss to a 15 seed to show for it. And I know St. Peter's, oh my God, they're such an amazing story. You can't lose that game if you're Kentucky. I don't care how great Shaheen Holloway is. I don't care how great the story is. You can't lose that game if you're Kentucky. And I think that's the part that would concern me, is that I just don't know what he can do to regain the trust of the fan base after what happened in this NCAA tournament this year until next year's NCAA tournament.
Well, look, I mean, I talked about it with the people that joined me on this podcast. Is I think that was the worst loss maybe in NCAA tournament history. I know Virginia, UMBC, whatever, 116, but I mean, it's Kentucky. That's Kentucky that lost that game. You know, one of the most historic programs of all time is losing to a school with 2,000 students. You know, a school that has a $37 million budget, and it's just so hard to wrap your head around it when you actually are looking at, you know, everything that goes into it. And you're looking at St. Peter's high school gym and everything like this. It's so hard to wrap your head around Kentucky losing that game. And
I'm with you.
Yeah, it's hard,
no,
man. It's so hard.
There's still sometimes I just sit there like, I can't believe they lost to St. Peter's. I don't care. I don't care how great the story is. By the way, I don't understand how Matt Painter lost to St. Peter's too. That's another conversation for the hot and cold and really cold pod, because I know nobody cares about Purdue basketball, but Matt Painter, for all the crap that Mark Few gets, Matt Painter, 6 top 3 finishes in the Big Ten over the last 8 years. And he has 1 Elite Eight, 0 Final Fours, 0 national championships to show for it. Like Mark Few's at least getting to the Final Four. He may get run out of the gym by Baylor last year, but they were the clear second best team in the country. I actually think, you know, people will throw out whatever stat. But anyway, Matt Painter, same thing. But whatever. You get the point.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And that leads us into, let's talk about our first game. You said Mark Few, you know, the Arkansas Razorbacks. I'm going to let you kind of take control of this game a little bit, because you have one of the weirdest cult followings in all of, you know, sports talk radio and anything, because Arkansas fans love you. And I think I'm going to let you harp on this a little bit. But before I do that, you know, Arkansas goes in, they out-tough Gonzaga for 40 minutes. Chet Holmgren obviously gets in foul trouble. That was a terrible matchup for him, in my opinion, by the way. But I do want you to kind of take control. How did Arkansas win this game? Why does Arkansas, you know, have a chance going forward?
So I made the analogy on my show, Sam. To me, as weird as it sounds, there's parallels to St. Peter's, Kentucky. Not to go back to Kentucky, but that St. Peter's, Kentucky game, there was one team that had a very specific game plan built to beat the team that they were playing. And that was St. Peter's. 3 bodies on Oscar Tshiebwe at every time. You know, obviously they got, you know, they hit a couple threes, which gave momentum, whatever. But you could tell they went in with a specific game plan on how to beat that specific team. And I think Kentucky just showed up, whatever, we're good. We're a 2 seed. We'll be fine. I thought it was the same with Gonzaga in Arkansas, where I thought Arkansas did an incredible job in terms of that game. Before we look ahead to Duke, it was clear to me we're going to limit transition. Okay, they did that if you watch the game. They put a big 6'7" kid, Audis Toney, on the point guard, Andrew Nemhard. So we're basically going to make this kid's life miserable. He's the head of the snake. We're going to cut off the head of the snake. We're not going to let him make plays, blah, 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 this and that. And then they attacked Chet Holmgren. And I'll be honest, you know, you can talk about my cult following with Arkansas. There were some bogus calls on Chet Holmgren, but it doesn't change the fact that Arkansas's players put the officials in the tough position to have to make those calls. And so I thought it was a very well put together game plan to beat Gonzaga. Now, I will say, I'm curious how they attack Duke, because Kentucky fans know this. Like, Duke, there isn't one strength to take away. There's 5 different guys on the court that can beat you at any given time. So I'm really curious. Obviously, Arkansas, second straight Elite Eight. They lose to the eventual national champs last year as we record here right before this Arkansas-Duke game. if Duke wins this one, I'm just telling you, you look at the rest of the bracket, it's hard to see the team that you feel like definitively has an edge over Duke going into New Orleans if they win today.
Yeah, and we can kind of talk, Duke, they go out and they beat Texas Tech, who everybody fell in love with Texas Tech in the story, and maybe they can get out of that region and beat Gonzaga. And look, Texas Tech played a good game. Duke, they went to the zone. That's what everybody talks about with 6 minutes left. And they ended up pulling away. Jeremy Roach was hitting some great shots down the stretch, which is weird. He's kind of turned it around at the end of the season. It was kind of him and Trevor Keels. They were kind of fighting for that starting spot. And now we're here. Jeremy Roach looks to have taken that. We can kind of look at that Arkansas Duke matchup. I kind of like Arkansas's chances. I know you just said there was, because I'm going to tell you, look, I thought Gonzaga's weakness was their guard play. And I thought that's what Arkansas capitalized on, because I think their guards are tough, they're physical, and they get into you. And that's what happened to Gonzaga. I think the same thing may happen with Duke. I'm not saying their weakness is as obvious as Gonzaga's was. But Jeremy Roach, obviously, he's had a great stretch. I still think Arkansas's guards are going to get into Duke's. They have a guy in Jalen Williams. They don't have depth, which doesn't help. If they get into foul trouble, they're done. But I think they can get into Duke. I think Jalen Williams is a good enough defender on the inside. I think they have some incredible defensive sets with Eric Musselman. He's sending guys for doubles and everything. I like Arkansas's chances in this game against Duke. That's kind of why they'll out physical the pretty boys at Duke.
I like their chances too. I just don't know if I like them to win. I mean, I like their chances. I mean, do they have a chance? I think that they have more than a chance. I just worry about, one thing Coach Muss with that NBA background. I mean, the NBA, it's pretty straightforward. We got to take away your strength. We got to take away your best player and make somebody else beat us or make you win in an uncomfortable way. And it just goes back to the thing I just said about Duke, which is you look at them. I don't know what you take away. You say, first of all, they have no one with Mark Williams. And this is something I get a lot of stuff wrong. I've been on this since Duke played Gonzaga in November. I was at that game. Everybody talks about AJ Griffin, this guy being the difference maker, that guy being the difference maker. Mark Williams is difference maker. You can't replicate 7'1", 7'5" wingspan. The difference between them and Gonzaga is they have a little bit more depth behind them. Paulo can play the 5, all that good stuff. So I think Arkansas has more than a chance. It wouldn't shock me at all to win if they were to win this game. I guess my thing is that, you look at their NCAA tournament run, obviously New Mexico State was just a grind, right? It was just an absolute grind. We just talked about everything that they did against Gonzaga to limit what Gonzaga does well. And while I think Duke, obviously, look, freshmen, jitters, this, that, the other thing, one, they've elevated their play. Like, that's the one thing about this Duke run is I think most people are like, well, I hate Duke, but they're not getting the call. It's not like they're winning because they're getting the calls because CBS or TBS wants them in the final. They're just going out and taking these games and making big plays. And so, listen, again, maybe if it's a 2-point game with 2 minutes to go, this is the game where they wilt. But we've seen now 2 games in a row where they've actually stepped up their play late. Now, the other thing could be true too. You goof around like Gonzaga, like Kentucky against St. Peter's, like Purdue against St. Peter's. All of a sudden you could be down 8-10 and all of a sudden you got a battle or whatever. And I know that, Kentucky was never down 8, but you get the point. So right. I'll say this with the 2 games on Sunday, Saturday, I don't feel great about either side in either game. I think all 4 teams, if we look up Saturday night and any of the 4 are in the Final Four, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, no. Okay. One last thing on this game. The thing I like about Arkansas is, I kind of had the same theory with UCLA last year when they made their run. They are kind of a chameleon. They can beat you in a multitude of different ways. You see it with New Mexico State. Obviously, I'm sorry for bringing up New Mexico State. I know they beat your beloved Huskies.
They were the better team. They deserve to beat UConn. I had people were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "Why? My team sucked today. They deserve to lose." And it's okay. Yeah. My UConn ladies, the only team that I care about,
there you go,
are beating the Indiana Hoosiers right now as we speak. But anyway, neither here nor there in the women's tournament. But anyway, I digress.
So I like them because, they obviously had that tough it out game with New Mexico State where low scoring, whatever. And then they're able to put up 74 against Gonzaga, one of the best defensive teams in the country. They're able to put up 74. Their best player shoots like 9 of 30, and they still win the game against, the best team in the nation for the entire year. And I like that they can kind of play in any style. They can kind of shift how they play, adapt against any team that they go up against. I think they're going to do that against Duke. Look, I know Duke has some awesome playmakers, like Paul Banchero is probably the number 1 pick in the draft if he keeps this March run going. But look, man, again, I'm with you. I don't really like picking either of these games tonight because I can see it going either way. But I don't know. I think I like Arkansas more than a lot of people do. Kind of moving on into the next games. Look, this next game is going to be awesome with the coaching battle that's happening. Kelvin Sampson easily becoming one of the best coaches in the country as we speak. And Jay Wright, in my opinion, the best coach in the country. They're going up against each other. Houston is a team that nobody really paid attention to before this tournament. They only had 2 quad 1 wins, the whole story about that. And they're here. They lost their best player in Sasser right before the tournament, whatever. But Jamal Shedd, Kyler Edwards are stepping up. They're a better offensive team than a lot of people give them credit for. They punked Arizona, and they're going up against a fundamentally sound Villanova team. I don't know which way to go. If I had to pick, I would go with Jay Wright in March because I think Villanova is going to be ready for it. But that's kind of my opinion. I think it's going to be very close. What do you think?
Oh, now that I'm actually thinking about the matchup, I do think I like Houston. And it's for a few reasons. I mean, one, it's their rebounding, but it's their offensive rebounding. Mm-hmm. And Villanova is just not a very big team. And Villanova, I actually thought, you talk about coaching, and I agree with you on both those guys. I think, I'm going to do my official rankings at the end of the year. I'd probably have Jay Wright number 1. I'd probably have Kelvin Sampson top 5, maybe top 3. But I bring it up because I thought Jay Wright had a very interesting tactical move in the Michigan game, which was Michigan was killing him on the boards with Hunter Dickinson, and he went smaller rather than going bigger. He said,
it was crazy. Yeah.
I thought it was awesome. I thought it was an awesome move. And so, but the thing with Houston is they rebound so well, and they're not really really big. And so now that I'm talking it through, they can switch and they can do whatever, where Michigan, it's kind of like, okay, we're going to leave our 7-footer out there, and then you're just going to abuse him, when he's on defense, and you hope that it overcomes what he does on offense. And so now that I think about it, I actually do think that I like Houston pretty convincingly because I love Jay Wright, but I don't know when they send 5 guys to the glass and they're getting all these offensive rebounds, and they were getting it against Arizona that plays 2 7-footers. And then on the opposite side, you have a situation where, you now have guys that are big but quick enough to defend ball screens and switches. And I don't like to talk X's and O's because it's boring, but I think it's important here. I guess now that I'm talking it through, I think I do like Houston to win this game and maybe win it by a reasonably significant margin.
Wow. Okay. No, I think
like 6-10. I don't. It's not going to be like 30 points, but
right.
I would say like 6-10.
I think it is interesting because when you look at these teams, they kind of play a completely different style of play. Like Houston is rough it up, like you said, crash the glass offensively, physical. And then Villanova is, their fundamentals, their pump fakes, the swing it, it is a completely different style of basketball. And it'll be a lot of fun to see. I want to see how Villanova responds to getting punched in the mouth by Houston. I want to see if they can kind of respond and weather the storm a little bit, because if they can, I like Villanova. But like you said, yes, there is some serious matchup problems with the Houston Cougars, in my opinion. But
yeah, I agree.
What's so this is obvious, the story of the tournament, the St. Peter's Peacocks. I joked about it on the last podcast. Doug Eddert is, he's going to be the death of me, whatever. I'm not going to harp too much on it, but they go in. They play Purdue. Everybody, look, I was guilty of saying I liked Purdue points last night, and it was like -13. I was like, this is done. Like St. Peter's, the run is over. We've all seen this before. And then they come in and they do this. I could not believe how prepared they were. Shaheen Holloway, obviously a great job. How prepared they were for Edey. Edie couldn't even play in the last minutes of the game. And it was a crazy game, but St. Peter's did it. They won 67-64. And I'm just kind of wondering, I'm sitting here wondering, when are we going to stop calling them the Cinderella, Lucky, and March, whatever, and start saying, like, they're not, like, their sets, everything they do, they're prepared for every game. They look really good, honestly, like, not talented, but they look good. When are we going to say that they aren't maybe, that 15 seed level of talent?
Thought that I've had, because obviously I picked them to lose to Kentucky. Thought for sure they'd lose to Murray State. Thought for sure they'd lose to Purdue. And so as we sit here and talk about it, I mean, I can't make the definitive case why they won't be able to beat North Carolina. I mean, what's the definitive case? What does North Carolina do? Caleb Love's going to be the best player on the court, but he's hot and cold, and no pun intended. And two, what do they do that Kentucky, Purdue, and Murray State couldn't do? They're really good. They have great guard play. Kentucky had good enough guard play. Purdue has a lottery pick in their whatever. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm fascinated. I don't know what to make of it. I think on the other side, it's worth noting, like, I was as critical of Hubert Davis as anybody. Credit him for figuring things out and turning things around. And you can't really say that the bracket broke their way. I mean, they went through the 9 seed Marquette, the 1 seed, Baylor, and then of course UCLA on Friday night. So I'm with you, is that it's a great story. And one thing I talk about on my show all the time, Sam, most people in the media are dumb, and they like to wrap their heads around very simple things, very simple concepts. And St. Peter's, 15 seed, the Peacocks, as you said, high school gym, whatever. That's very simple to wrap. Oh my God, it was the same with Sister Jean. It's like, dude, I get it. She's old. Like,
that was very lazy of me. That was very lazy of me. But I had to put it in there. It was insult to injury.
What's that?
It was insult to injury that Kentucky lost to a team with those facilities.
No. But what I'm saying is, though, I think it's the point that we're both trying to make, which is I don't think, it's that I think most of the media is dumb, and they want to wrap their head around a simple concept. And it's like, 15 seed, high school gym, whatever. And it's like, watch the games. Like they were I wouldn't say they were the definitive better team than Kentucky, but they were certainly better prepared. They were certainly better than Murray State. And I would argue they were better than Purdue on Friday night. There was nothing fluky about that win. There was no bad call late. There was no, Jaden Ivey, knock on wood, I don't even want to make light of it, but, he didn't go down with an injury. There was nothing. Right. I mean, they were the better team against Purdue, which maybe speaks to the Big Ten. Maybe that's another conversation for another podcast. But, but I'm with you. It's like, let's stop. This isn't what the media wants it to be. And like I said, I can't sit here and make the definitive case why North Carolina is so much different than everybody else, and St. Peter's has no chance on Sunday.
No, and it's just weird because they don't look like that team when they're playing. Like you made the case, like they play advanced, like they look like they belong there, and usually that's not the case. Maybe they give up a lot of size sometimes, but they find a way to kind of play up from that size. And I don't know. They're kind of fun to watch. They're actually a lot of fun to watch. They hit their free throws. They don't make mistakes. And that's huge. That's huge. And let's get into their matchup at UNC. They beat UCLA. Caleb Love's show. He goes off for like 30 in the second half or something crazy like that. And like you said, Hubert Davis really changed the narrative. Like everybody was saying, maybe this was a mistake for the hire, bringing in the assistant, whatever. But he has turned this team around. He's reached their full potential. They put up 1,000 points against Marquette. They outplay Baylor, and now they're beating UCLA, who everybody was like, okay, now UCLA has an inside lane to the Final Four. And I don't know. I think this UNC team is very good. I think they struggle defensively. I think they struggle with depth behind Armando Bacot. But I do think Brady Manick, he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink over there. He was obviously the best player at Oklahoma, taking a back seat to Caleb Love and Armando Bacot at UNC. But that's kind of a long-winded way of me saying, they kind of deserve to be here. They beat all their teams. Like you said, it wasn't fluky with St. Peter's, and now we're set for maybe the weirdest Elite Eight matchup that I could ever imagine in UNC versus St. Peter's. I don't think anybody had that before the tournament started. But like you said, it's really hard for me to say that UNC is really going to kill St. Peter's at anything. Like St. Peter's, Shaheen Holloway is going to be ready for that game, even off this quick turnaround. So I don't know what is your pick. Before I make my pick, I might kind of steal your thunder a little bit. What is your pick in this game? If you had to gun ahead, I would assume so. I'll check it right now. Let's see. UNC 8.5.
Yeah, I mean, why? I'll probably pick UNC. I mean, they're gonna have the best player on the floor in Caleb Love. Brady Manick stretching things out maybe plays a little bit of a factor down low, but I can't. I guess what I would say is it's like Houston, whatever. It's like Houston Villanova. I mean, and I even kind of talked myself into that one. I can't just sit here and make the definitive case for UNC why it's not even going to be close. So I'll go ahead and pick UNC to win. I think it's going to be a close game though. I mean, UNC, listen, they deserve to beat UCLA, but UCLA was in control for large parts of that game. So I'll go ahead and take UNC to win. I don't feel great about it though. I mean, if we were in Vegas or, the sports book, wherever, it's probably one I just sit out and enjoy and just watch from a distance. So I'll go ahead and take UNC. I don't feel great about it. And if you tell me that your pick is St. Peter's, I'm not going to like crush you for it or be totally shocked by it.
It's just so weird for me to sit here and pick a 15 seed to go to the Final Four. And
Sure.
And I think, look, what everybody's going to want, I think it's kind of like if Duke beats Arkansas tonight, then what do you want? You want the 15 seed Cinderella to go to the Final Four, or do you want, Duke UNC? Like the media is going to be all over Duke UNC in the Final Four. They never played each other in the tournament. Now they're playing each other in the semifinals. So it's weird, man. I think it could go either way. I think since it's such a quick turnaround, I'll take UNC in this game. If they got the pause from Murray State to Purdue, like they just did, and they got that for UNC, I maybe would like St. Peter's because they'd have a lot more time to game plan. I don't know. I'll go UNC here. I just can't say in good faith I'm putting a 15 seed in the Final Four, no matter how good they are. And we've been talking about how good they are. I'm just harping right back onto it a little bit.
So you're probably too young to remember this, but in a lot of ways, it reminds me of the year that Steph Curry took Davidson to the Elite Eight. And
sure.
It was like a cool story at first. And like, I think it's easy now to forget because he's, one of the best players in the NBA, but the whole story was like, oh, Del Curry's son. And like, look at these crazy shots that he takes. And like, at some point along the way, you realize like, oh, this guy's really good. It's not just because he's an NBA player's son. And this team is really, really good. And, and it was the same thing of they get through that first weekend. I remember them beating Georgetown. I can't remember who they beat in round one. And then you go into that following weekend, and I forget who they were playing, but they were playing in Detroit, and LeBron is there, and it's this big thing. And, you think, oh, the stage is going to be too big. And then you're like watching that game, and you're like, they're the better team right now. And they go to the Elite Eight, and they play Kansas, and they basically miss a shot at the buzzer to go to the Final Four. And so I'm getting the same vibes from the St. Peter's team that I got from that team. Is at first it was just a really cool story, unique. We've never seen anything quite like it. And I think the Purdue game was the one that kind of opened my eyes of like, this isn't fluky. This isn't weird. They're well coached. Maybe they have a few guys that the high majors just missed on that aren't, they not McDonald's All-Americans, but like they're probably better than people realize. And so for that reason, I'll probably take UNC to win. I'll probably take St. Peter's to cover, though. I really will. And by the way, we talk all this time about the pressure that's on there. There's pressure on Carolina now, too. This is the first game that they're going into that people are like, oh,
way more pressure on North Carolina.
Can't lose this one. Come on, Carolina. And like you said, especially if Duke wins, as we're recording here, we're recording a little bit before the game, especially if Duke wins. Now you got Duke, Carolina in the Final Four Saturday night, New Orleans. Oh my goodness. So it's an interesting thought. I'll probably take UNC to win, but if I was betting, one, I'd probably sit it out. But two, if I was betting, I'd probably side with St. Peter's. I probably would. And again, to your point, it's weird to talk about a 15 seed being in the Final Four, but I don't think it's inconceivable. I really don't, not just based on the way that they play.
No, yeah, and the UNC thing, it kind of reminds me of when LeBron was supposed to meet up with Kobe in the NBA Finals, and they lost to Dwight Howard and the Orlando Magic, if you remember that at all. But that's kind of the vibes I'm getting. UNC may not hold up their end of the bargain. And yeah, it'll be very interesting. I don't like using NBA analogies. That one was just right there, low-hanging fruit. I can make fun of LeBron. Let's kind of move on a little bit. Kansas and Miami. Look, Kansas, they played both of those games, the Kansas Providence game and obviously the Miami Iowa State game. They were running concurrently with the best games of the night. I had them both on, but I wasn't paying a lot of attention to them. Providence just, the luck ran out in air quotes, whatever.
You want me to tell you what happened in the Providence Kansas game?
Yeah, you could tell me. Yeah, no, I was watching, but you can tell me in your.
I mean, I say this as somebody who had Providence plus 7.5 and was watching very closely. Kansas was basically a Remy Martin hot streak away from it basically being like 20-17 at halftime. And Providence was, listen, Kansas fans would crush me for saying this. I thought Providence was the better team. They just missed a lot of wide open shots. And with Kansas, it goes back to something that I've said since before the tournament. I don't know they don't really have any pop behind Ochai Agbaji. Now, Remy Martin has stepped up, but Ochai Agbaji also hasn't played very well. 5 of 14 in the opener, 5 of 14 in the second round, struggled against Providence. I thought Providence was the better team. I thought Kansas probably deserved to win just because Providence couldn't make the plays that they needed to make. So as it pertains to this game with Miami, whatever, but that was my takeaway from Kansas Providence was I don't think the better team won on Friday night. And, oh, by the way, Kansas had fits with Creighton when they played them on last Saturday as well.
Mm-hmm. So saying that about Kansas, you turn around, you play Miami for a chance to go to the Final Four. Do you think Miami could win that game? I know that's a stupid question. Yeah. Obviously they can, but
absolutely.
Okay.
No, absolutely. I mean, dude, absolutely. I mean, I would argue, some might disagree, Miami's playing better than Kansas right now. Miami destroyed Auburn. And that Iowa State game, they turned the ball. They're one of the teams that turns the ball over least of anybody in college basketball. And they had like 6 turnovers in the first 8 minutes. And second half, they just took care of the ball and they destroyed Iowa State. And so with Kansas, I think Kansas is fine. We talked all year about how there really wasn't that much difference between, number 1 and number 15. I mean, I said it during the game. We crushed Gonzaga, we crushed Arizona, whatever. I would argue that any of the 8 teams that played on Thursday night, including the ones that lost, Arizona, Gonzaga, whoever, Texas Tech, if they had played Kansas on Friday night the way Kansas was playing, every single one of those teams wins. And so It's funny how the bracket works and how the bracket breaks out and all that stuff, especially in a year like this year where the best teams aren't better significantly than everybody else. So, yeah, I mean, I absolutely think that Kansas can lose this game. I don't know if I'm there picking it yet, but I don't think it's inconceivable. I really don't.
I think there's one thing about Miami that kind of sets them apart from that 10 seed. And maybe, maybe they're better than they're seeded because I think they have, a trio of guards that can go off on any given night. And I think, I think with Isaiah Wong, I think with Cam McGusty, I think with Charlie Moore, I think those are 3 guys that can really kill you. And there's not a lot of teams that can keep up with that. Look, I made fun of Auburn's guards for a large portion of the season. KD Johnson, Wendell Green, erratic as all hell. But they absolutely got destroyed by those 3 guards. And I think if Kansas isn't ready, obviously Remy Martin's now playing, better than he has all season. But before that, they didn't really have that definitive point guard, somebody that they can rely on. And, I think Miami can really expose that. I'm not there picking. I'm with you. I think Kansas wins. I think they just have too much firepower. McCormick, if he plays well, what is Miami going to do? They have no big men, and obviously didn't matter against, the tallest team in the nation in USC and Miami or Auburn, who obviously had 2 fantastic big men. But I think it kind of catches up to them here. Ochai Agbaji, he's a big time matchup problem with that small lineup that they run. Yeah, I like Kansas, but I'm kind of with you. Like Larinaga has done an awesome job finishing out the season with this Miami team. Iowa State I thought was maybe a tough matchup because they're going to slow it down. They're going to muck up the game, and I know Miami likes to get out and run, score a lot of points. But they ended up winning, and they won convincingly. So it's going to be a weird Final Four, man. Because only one seed remains in Kansas, and I'm not too sure if I like Kansas that much, and if they're that much better. Like right now, I'm looking at it. I think Houston's better. I think Villanova's better. I think Duke's better. I think Arkansas is better. I think all these teams are better than the last one seed, which is crazy to think about.
That's what I'm saying, and that's why.
And that's the point you made, yeah.
Well, and Kansas is like they're here because the bracket broke nicely for them. Like, first of all, I think San Diego State, if they had beaten Creighton in round one and they had like a 15-point second half lead, I think they'd probably beat Kansas. So, I'm not going to go through the entire resume, but it is a matchup-based tournament, and if there was ever a doubt, this year is a perfect example. I mean, imagine if Kansas, they couldn't score against Providence last night or Friday night. Imagine if they were playing Houston in the same deal, and Houston could score. Yeah, it would have been a lot to a little. A lot. Yeah. So it's just whatever. I mean, it's a fun tournament, and it has. And I'll say this too, as we start to wrap, is like I have actually enjoyed it more than like if you had given me this Elite Eight before the tournament started, I'd be like, this is awful. Like, I don't want to watch this. Like, I don't care about St. Peter's. I don't care about Miami. North Carolina's awful. Well, no, North Carolina's actually really good. St. Peter's, as we discussed, is better than people give them credit for. It's not just a feel-good. It is a feel-good story, but it's more than that. So I'm excited to see how these next 4 games play out. I don't know that maybe the Houston game, I feel pretty good that Houston takes care of business. But outside of that, I don't feel great about picking for or against any of the other 6 teams. And I even Villanova, I don't feel great picking Houston. That'd probably be if I was in some sort of survivor pool. That would be my pick for this round, but I don't feel great about it at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, as a Kentucky fan, this isn't the Elite Eight that I would want. Like if I looked at this, I'd be pissed that, Duke's left. Yeah. Duke still has a chance to, finish out the farewell tour in a championship.
You'd be like, what the hell happened to my Wildcats? And you'd be like, oh, that happened. That was
really apparently we ran into the best team in the country. So I'm not going to.
Real quick, is that like a conversation in Kentucky, the Kentucky world of not giving Calipari a pass, but like, okay, maybe this team was way better than we gave him credit for, or is it still screw Calipari, he's awful, get him out?
I think this is how it's going to go. I think Cal is definitely he's definitely going to use that. Like he's going to use that in the press conference. He's going to say, well, what do you want us to do? We lost to an Elite Eight team. We got matched up.
And it's going to piss people off so bad. It's like when he went to the podium after the St. Peter's game and said, none of my guys have ever been here before. It's like, Cal, people don't want to hear that. And oh, by the way, in 4 months, Cal probably won't really meet with the media here probably until September or October. He is going to use that. And it's just, no one's going to remember how awesome the story was. Everyone's just going to be like, Cal, cut the BS, cut the crap. You're so full of it. Blah, 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 blah. Sorry.
No, I 100% agree with you. Nobody in the fan base is giving him a pass for this. There's not one person in the fan base. And so, yeah, I mean, since it happened, I was rooting against St. Peter's. Then I went to, okay, let's go to Murray State, right next to Kentucky, close to where I live. And then they beat Murray State. And then I was like, well, screw it. Let's just go with the Peacocks. I'm all with the Peacocks for the rest of this tournament. But yeah, I really don't want Cal to use that excuse, and I know he will. Like there's got to be somebody in his PR team or something that has to take control, because he just digs himself a hole in every single one of those press conferences when he goes from, oh, Shaden's coming back, to now he's saying, oh, well, he's going to test the waters, see if he's ready. And then, yeah.
No, he said he has to test the waters. He has to. To me, that there's a big difference between, well, he might and he has to. And that's my whole thing with Cal. And I have no skin in the game. I don't really care one way or the other. But it's like, dude, there's a way to say this stuff without coming off the way that he does. But he doesn't say that stuff the way that he should. And I don't know, man. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
He just needs, like, I get it. Some of his candid stuff is very funny. If you go flashback, listen to the stuff he said about Rick Pitino when he was at, UMass, he was at Memphis, whatever. It's very funny. And, but now he's just pissing off, the most rabid fan base in the country on a day-by-day basis. And by the way that it just kind of rolls off his back, like, and he does not care. He's the only guy that can have this job at the moment. Like, he's the only guy that can deal with the hate that he's getting. You see Chris Beard, not to make fun of the guy, but he's lashing out at a fan for making fun of him after a loss. Like, Cal can take care, like, he can take care of this business. What were you saying?
I won't name the name, but I had a coach that I don't know saw a pretty innocuous tweet that I sent and sent me like a DM trying to scold me about my coverage of his team. So it is amazing how thin-skinned some of these guys are. Mm-hmm. But I also think there's something to I think he's got to listen, and I think he's got to. It's like you said, maybe he doesn't have to listen to the fans, but he's got to be smarter how he presents things. I don't think a fan wants to hear we've never been here before. Maybe he's protecting his players and whatever. Who cares? Can't say that. We just talked about Shaden Sharp. You don't have to say that. You don't have to pretend whatever. Shaden Sharp, all season long, he said, we can't wait for him to lead us in 2022, 2023. You don't have to say that. You could just say, we certainly hope he's back. Now that we know he's eligible for the draft, we're going to want him to make the best decision. And fans there's a way to even spin it, like get out ahead of it, being like, look, I would understand a fan's frustration if he declared, but we've always put the players first in this program. We love our players. We're never going to hold them back, but that's not a decision that we'll make until the end of the year. And we don't believe he's ready to play, and we're not going to force him out there if we don't believe that he's ready to play. There's so many ways to do it. Not, we can't wait for him to lead us in 2023 to, he has to go declare to do what is best for him and his family to get the real feedback that they need.
It's unreal. It's unreal. To this day, I cannot believe he said he will be back to lead us for 2023. To this day, I cannot believe he said that. And
like you said, there's ways to present stuff. And, the tough thing is his whole sports information department left. I mean, Dwayne Peavy mm-hmm. left, who's really his right-hand man, left to be the AD at DePaul. Eric Lindsay, who worked with him since the beginning, basically left as well. So maybe there just isn't anybody that can get in his ear. I don't know. I don't know enough about the inner workings there at this point, but man, I just think I don't know. It's an interesting time. It's an interesting time to feel.
Yeah, and it's very stressful. It's going to be a very stressful offseason, just like the last one. There's already, smoke brewing that, we may lose a coach, blah, 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 all this stuff. It's every bit of it is speculation about Kentucky, but what are you going to expect when, you're that big of a program, that big of all the eyes are on you. You just lost to St. Peter's. It'll be interesting how it plays out. It definitely will be interesting how it plays out. But Aaron, you did a great job.
Thank you.
You want to say?
Go ahead.
You want to say one thing about IU so you can just kind of fulfill that Connor spot just a little bit more?
Well, I mean, IU's future is bright. They have the best coach in college basketball, Mike Woodson, arguably. There's no other coach in college basketball that's led the New York Knicks to the playoffs. So, I mean, I think that's something that you have to consider when talking about him among Jay Wright and Bill Self as the best in the business. If you want to throw Kelvin Sampson in there, I still am a big Mark Few fan despite what happened. But, there's nobody quite like Mike Woodson. I will say, unrelated to anything, and this maybe isn't even for air, but we did sell a lot of T-shirts once they started winning. I think the Indiana fan base is so very much craving this team to be good. I hope he can be the guy. Obviously, we opened by talking the portal stuff. I get why guys make a decision in this day and age. Younger guys coming in, you're a veteran, you've been there 4 years, whatever. But we'll see. But I got faith. I really do have faith. I really was impressed late. I liked how Xavier Johnson came on late. And we'll see what happens. I mean, obviously, look, there's still some big decisions. I mean, I know the Race Thompson thing. I know he was out for senior day. He did the speech, but I saw reports that they think he'd at least consider coming back. So we still got a big offseason ahead of trying to figure out what our roster looks like. Unfortunately, on the women's side, my UConn Huskies just took care of business against the Indiana Hoosiers.
Oh, that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate for the Hoosiers fan base. But yes, they're craving it for sure. And that's why they lash out at me. They will lash out at you when we make fun of the Big Ten, because it is the most overrated conference in America. And I think that's a good way to finish this episode off a little bit. But yes, Aaron, thank you for filling the role of co-host for today. It's been a great episode. Let's watch some basketball. Let's have some good games. The games start at 6 my time, I believe. So let's get this thing going. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate you guys having me. I really do.
Yes, sir.